Here's something most people over 60 are never told. The breakfast you've been eating for decades, the one your doctor probably called heart healthy, the one on the box with the big wellness logo and the check mark, that breakfast may be one of the single worst things you can do for your bones. Not junk food, not a cheeseburger, your breakfast. I know that's a hard thing to hear, but after years of digging into the research on aging, nutrition, and bone health, I've seen this pattern again and again. The foods we're told are safe, even virtuous, are sometimes the very ones quietly eroding what holds us upright. And today, we're going to talk about three of them, three breakfast habits that are categorized as healthy by mainstream nutrition advice, but that the science increasingly links to accelerated bone loss, especially after 60. Counting down from number 3 to number 1, and I want to warn you right now. Number 1 is the one that's going to surprise you the most. It's something millions of people eat every single morning, believing they're doing their bones a favor. Don't skip ahead. All the sources are linked in the description below. Citable research from places like Harvard Health, Mayo Clinic, and peer-reviewed medical journals. And before we do, how many mornings a week do you eat breakfast? Drop your number in the comments. I read every single one. So let's start with the third habit, starting your day with a hidden salt load. This one surprises almost everyone, because it's not about salt you add, it's about salt that's already there, lurking inside foods you'd never suspect. Think about what healthy breakfasts often include: whole grain bread, fat cheese, turkey slices, certain fortified cereals, even some cottage cheeses and yogurts. On the surface, these look like smart choices, and in some ways they are. But many of them carry a significant hidden sodium load that, eaten every single morning, creates a quiet and consistent drain on your bones. Here's what's actually happening inside your body. Your kidneys are constantly working to manage the sodium in your bloodstream. When sodium levels run high, your kidneys flush the excess out through your urine. That's normal. That's healthy. But here's the part no one tells you. Calcium travels out with it. Every time your body excretes excess sodium, it takes calcium along for the ride. Not because something is wrong, but because of the way these minerals interact in your renal. It's a completely normal biological process. But when it's happening every day, breakfast after breakfast, year after year, the cumulative effect on your bone mineral density can be significant. Harvard Health specifically identifies high sodium intake as one of the everyday habits that sneakily weakens bones, noting that it drives calcium loss through the urine. This isn't fringe science. This is well-documented mainstream biology that simply doesn't make it into most nutrition conversations. I think about a woman named Carol, a retired nurse from Ohio, 66 years old. She was doing everything right, she thought. Low-fat yogurt in the morning, a slice of whole grain toast with a thin spread of low-fat cheese, a small glass of orange juice. She'd cut out the bacon years ago. She was proud of her clean breakfast routine. But when her bone density scan came back lower than expected, she was genuinely baffled. It was only when she started reading nutrition labels, really reading them, that she realized her healthy breakfast was delivering well over a third of the daily recommended sodium limit before 9 a.m. Within a few months of making some simple swaps, her overall dietary sodium dropped substantially, and her follow-up showed measurable improvement. And the good news is the fix is not complicated. It just requires a new label habit. Start reading sodium numbers the same way you already read calories. For breakfast specifically, aim to keep your sodium under 400 to 500 milligrams for the meal. If you can. Choose plain, unseasoned versions of staples, plain oats instead of flavored instant oat, which often contain more sodium than you'd expect. If you eat bread, look for lower sodium whole grain options. If you love yogurt, which is actually a smart bone food, choose plain Greek yogurt over flavored versions, which can carry added sodium along with added sugar. And pair your lower sodium breakfast with a calcium-containing food. Adults over 60 need between 1,000 and 200 milligrams of calcium daily, according to WebMD's guidance on bone health. And what you eat in the morning sets the tone for whether you'll hit that target. Reducing the sodium doesn't mean reducing the flavor. Fresh fruit, a drizzle of honey. All of these can make a clean, low-sodium breakfast something you actually look forward to. Now, the second habit is where things get more interesting. Because this next one isn't about what you're adding to your body. It's about what one extremely common breakfast food is actively blocking your body from absorbing. And the cruelest irony is that manufacturers often add calcium to it to make it seem bone warm. Don't go anywhere. The second habit is one of the most frustrating paradoxes in bone nutrition, starting every morning with a high phosphate, high sugar cereal. You pick up a cereal box, you see the word fortified, you see calcium listed on the nutrition label. You think, perfect, this is helping my bones. And you've been starting your morning this way for years. But there are two problems hiding inside that bowl, and they work against each other, and against you in ways the marketing will never tell you. The first is phosphoric acid and high phosphate content, which is found not only in sodas, which everyone knows about, but in processed grain foods, some fortified cereals, and certain dairy alternatives. Here's the biology. Your body needs a careful balance of calcium and phosphorus to build and maintain bone. When phosphate intake is chronically elevated relative to calcium, it can interfere with calcium absorptions, and over time, put stress on the bone remodeling process. WebMD's overview of bone health identifies excess phosphorus as one of the documented bone wreckers. Nutrient that, in the wrong ratio, works against the calcium you're trying to get. The second problem is excess sugar. And I know we've all heard that sugar is bad. But the bone connection specifically is something most people have never been told. A diet consistently high in added sugar, particularly first thing in the morning, when it spikes blood glucose rapidly, promotes inflammation throughout the body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is a recognized driver of accelerated bone loss. It disrupts the balance between the cells that build bone and the cells that break it down. A scoping review on dietary patterns and bone health found that dietary patterns high in sugar and processed foods were consistently associated with worse bone outcomes, while dietary patterns closer to a Mediterranean or whole foods approach were associated with better bone health. And this isn't about having a little sugar occasionally. It's about the pattern, doing this every morning, 365 mornings a year. There's a man I want you to picture. His name is Gary. He's in his early 70s, lives outside of Denver. Active guy. Walks his dog every day, watches his cholesterol. For years, his morning ritual was a large bowl of a well-known whole grain cereal, one of the ones with a heart health logo on the box. He genuinely believed he was being responsible. His doctor eventually told him his bone density had declined more than expected for his age. More carefully at what he was eating, he found his cereal had several grams of added sugar per serving, and he was eating closer to 2 servings, plus a glass of orange juice adding more sugar on top. His breakfast was spiking his blood sugar every single morning before 8 a.m. He swapped to a bowl of plain rolled oats with walnut, a few berries, and a small serving of plain Greek yogurt on the side. It wasn't a dramatic overhaul, but within a few months his energy was steadier, his inflammatory markers improved, and he felt better about what he was putting in his body. The science was on his side. So moving forward from Gary's story, choose whole, minimally processed grains over fortified cereals with a long ingredients list. Plain oats are exceptional here. They're a genuinely complex carbohydrate. They don't spike blood sugar the way processed cereals do, and they carry real nutritional value. Add protein and fat to slow glucose absorption, a handful of walnuts, some chia seeds, or a spoon of almond butter. Be cautious with fortified foods as your primary calcium source. The British Dietetic Association points out that getting calcium from whole food sources like dairy, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and fish with bones is preferable to relying heavily on fortified products, because whole food sources typically come with cofactors that improve absorption. And watch the label for added sugars. If your breakfast cereal has more than 5 or 6 grams of added sugar per serving, it's worth reconsidering. By the way, if this is already changing how you think about your morning routine, take a second to hit the like button. It helps more people over 60 find information like this. And subscribe if you haven't. We publish practical, evidence-based content for people who want to stay strong and independent well into their later years. Number 1. I told you at the start that number 1 is the most counterintuitive item on this list. That it's something you've probably been told your whole life is good for your bones. And I meant it, because the number 1 breakfast habit, weakening bones after 60, is something that carries a near universal health halo. Something your parents probably gave you as a child specifically for your bone. This is the one. Stay with me. And here we are at number 1, and this one actually has 2 faces, and they're connected. Drinking a large glass of acidic juice, or worse. Building your entire morning around caffeine with no real food as the centerpiece of your breakfast. Let me be precise here, because both sides of this matter. The first face is fruit juice, orange juice, grapefruit juice, the classic breakfast staple. marketed alongside calcium for decades. It's literally calcium fortified, poured into generations of children's glasses with the message, "This is good for you." And here's the thing, in small amounts, real fruit juice isn't inherently terrible. But let's talk about what a large daily glass of fruit juice actually delivers at breakfast, especially for someone over 60. Fruit juice, even 100% natural, no sugar added juice, is a concentrated source of fruit sugar with the fiber removed. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber slows digestion and moderates the blood sugar response. When you drink a glass of orange juice, you're getting the sugar from multiple oranges with essentially none of the fiber. The result is a rapid blood sugar spike every single morning. And we already established what chronic blood sugar spikes do to inflammation, in turn to bone remodeling. But here's where the real science lives. A diet high in acidic foods and beverages creates what researchers call a higher dietary acid load. Your body is remarkably good at maintaining blood pH. It's not going to let your blood become acidic. But how it maintains that balance matters enormously for your bones. One of the primary ways your body neutralizes dietary acid is by drawing on alkaline minerals, including calcium, from your bones. This is called the acid-ash hypothesis. And while it has been debated in nutrition science, Harvard Health specifically identifies high dietary acid load as a factor that can contribute to calcium being drawn from bone tissue over time. When this is happening every single morning, with a high-acid, high-sugar drink as your first nutritional input of the day, it matters. Now let's talk about the second face of this, the coffee habit. And I want to be very clear, I'm not telling you to stop drinking coffee. Moderate coffee consumption has real health benefits, and the research on that is solid. But there is a specific pattern of coffee at breakfast that the evidence flags for bone health, and it has two components. The first is that caffeine does increase the rate at which calcium is excreted through urine. This is documented. Harvard Health and WebMD both identify excessive caffeine as one of the everyday habits that quietly undermines bone strength. The key word is excessive, and for most healthy adults, moderate coffee is fine. But if you're drinking multiple large coffees, skipping your calcium-rich foods, and already running low on dietary calcium, the caffeine-calcium drain becomes meaningful. The second, and this is the one that gets me because it's so common, is the combination of a large morning coffee, no food, no calcium source, then a sugary juice, then maybe a piece of toast. That's a breakfast pattern that delivers a high acid load, a blood sugar spike, a caffeine-driven calcium excretion boost, and essentially zero bone-building nutrients. It's a perfect storm in a mug and a glass. The Mayo Clinic is direct on this. Adequate calcium and vitamin D are the two most important nutritional pillars of bone health. Adults between 51 and 70 need 1,000 to 200 milligrams of calcium daily, and vitamin D is essential for the body to absorb and use that calcium effect. If your breakfast doesn't include a meaningful calcium source, you are starting your day behind. I want you to think about a woman named Linda, late 60s, lives in North Carolina, sharp and active. No family history of osteoporosis, so it wasn't really on her radar. Her morning routine, a large black coffee, sometimes two, a glass of OJ, maybe a piece of multigrain toast with jam. She was being sensible. No sags watching her cholesterol, nothing heavy. Then she had a minor fall, nothing dramatic, and fractured her wrist. Her bone scan showed density lower than her age would predict. Her doctor asked about her diet. When she described her breakfast, he told her something she'd never heard before. You're starting every day with almost no calcium, and a combination of factors that actively draws calcium away from your bones. She was stunned. She wasn't someone who ate badly. She just hadn't been given the right information. The change she made was simple. She kept her morning coffee, 1 cup with a splash of real milk. She replaced the large juice with a whole piece of fruit. She added plain Greek yogurt with a tablespoon of chia seeds. That breakfast now delivers meaningful calcium, protein, and healthy fat, with far less of the blood sugar spike and acid load. Completely biological start to the morning. So thinking about your own breakfast, think of it as your first bone-building window of the day. Here's how to approach it practically. First, include a real calcium source, plain Greek yogurt, milk, a small serving of cottage cheese, or even fortified oat milk if you're dairy-free. WebMD's guidance on bone fracture healing confirms that adults should target 1,000 to 200 milligrams of calcium daily, and getting a meaningful portion at breakfast is smart strategy. Second, add vitamin D or get some morning sun. Vitamin D is what allows your body to use the calcium you consume. as Mayo Clinic explains. Eggs are a modest dietary source. Fatty fish like salmon is a strong one. And 10 to 15 minutes of morning sunlight remains one of the most effective and underused bone health tools available to us. Third, replace the large morning juice with whole fruit. You get the fiber, the vitamins, the hydration, without the sugar dump and acid load. An actual orange or a handful of berries with your yogurt is a completely different nutritional experience than a glass of juice. And fourth, keep coffee moderate and always pair it with food that includes calcium. Don't let caffeine work against you. Let it coexist with your bone-building breakfast rather than replace it. And here's what I want you to see by this point in the video. These three habits, the hidden sodium drain, the high-sugar processed cereal, and the acidic juice and caffeine-only breakfast, they don't exist as isolation. Compound. A morning that starts with salty processed food, a sugary fortified cereal, and a large juice is delivering all three problems simultaneously. The sodium is pulling calcium out through your kidneys. The sugar is fueling inflammation that disrupts bone remodeling. The acid load is drawing on alkaline minerals, including calcium, from your skeletal system. And if you're washing it all down with 3 coffees and no actual calcium-containing food, your body has nothing to work with. Flip that pattern, and you're doing something powerful. Let's bring it all together. The third habit, the hidden sodium load. Processed breakfast foods, even the healthy ones, often carry significant sodium that triggers calcium excretion through the kidneys. Read your labels. Choose whole low-sodium options, the second habit. The high-sugar, high-phosphate processed cereal. Despite the fortified with calcium label, these cereals can deliver a blood sugar spike and a mineral imbalance that works against bone density. Swap to plain oats with real food toppings. And the first habit, the large daily juice and caffeine-heavy routine with no real calcium source. This delivers a high acid load, a sugar hit, and caffeine-driven calcium excretion, all before 9 a.m. with nothing to counterbalance it. Replace the juice with whole fruit. Pair your coffee with a genuine bone-building breakfast. If you're going to make one change tomorrow morning, make it this. Add a real calcium source to your breakfast. Plain Greek yogurt, real milk, a handful of almonds, something tangible. That one shift, done consistently, starts building a different trajectory. I want to be honest with you about something. These changes are not magic. They're not overnight. Bone health builds over months and years, not days. That's exactly the point. The habits that are quietly working against you have been doing so for a long time. And the habits that build you back up work on the same time scale, steadily, cumulatively, reliably. Your body is not broken. It's not betraying you. It's responding to the information you're giving it every single morning. Give it better information, and it responds accordingly. That's not wishful thinking. That's biology. You are not too old to protect your bones. The research is clear on that. Change the inputs, and the biology follows. If this video gave you something useful, please hit the like button. It takes 1 second, and it helps us reach more people in their 60s and 70s who need this information and aren't getting it elsewhere. Subscribe to Vital After 60 for more practical, evidence-based content delivered straight to you. Share this with someone you know who eats breakfast, which is most people.